The United States, Edmodo, Lesson 7. Let's first talk about some major geographic features you'll find in the West. While there are many, I have chosen just a few to highlight. You will see that the words written in color will coordinate with the map where it is pointed out where the physical feature lies with respect to the United States. So the Rocky Mountains are in blue, and you'll see the blue line that runs down through North America, through Canada and the U.S. They stretch 3,000 miles long. Mount McKinley, you can see there's a triangle up by Alaska. It's the highest point at over 20,000 feet. The Grand Canyon, which has been carved out by the Colorado River, is marked by a green circle, and Death Valley, which happens to be elevation-wise the lowest point and where the hottest recorded temperature has been at 134 degrees. Next, we have some pictures to look at. You'll notice the Rocky Mountains are rugged and jagged. You'll be able to compare and contrast that when we get to the Appalachian Mountains in the east, and we will talk about that, why they differ when we get to that region. Mount McKinley, which is beautiful and breathtaking and a nice place to visit. There's the Grand Canyon. You can see the Colorado at the bottom as it continues to carve out these beautiful canyons through water erosion. And then Death Valley, you can see the desert region, and you will understand why it is very warm there. Now, the central and eastern portion of the United States. Here we have 5, and so on your follow-along guide, you should be listing these geographic features for each region and a little explanation. So the Great Plains is very large and part of what we call home at 502,000 square miles. It stretches from Canada down through the center portion of the United States. The Badlands. This is unusable land that is beautiful and a great place to visit. The rocks have been eroded by wind and water. The Mississippi River, which begins in Minnesota and drains to the Gulf of Mexico, one of the longest in the U.S., and one of the world's busiest waterways. The Canadian Shield, which is a giant rocky core and one of the reasons why the Northeast began as an industrial region in our country. The Appalachian Mountains. They are the oldest mountains geologically in North America. You will notice when you see the picture that they are not as rugged and jagged as the Rocky Mountains. Here we have the Great Plains. Not much to look at since we are used to the Great Plains since we live in Kansas. The Badlands. These beautiful rocks have been eroded over time and is a great place to visit. The Mississippi River, also nicknamed the Old Miss. You can see how it meanders through the center portion of our country. The Canadian Shield. This shield, which is not just in Canada but also in the northeastern part of the United States, is one reason why we have many industrial areas in the eastern part of our country. The Appalachian Mountains. If you remember back to the Rocky Mountains, or if you'd like to go back to that, you can compare and contrast the two pictures, noticing that the Appalachian Mountains are a little bit smoother, not as rough and jagged. That is because the Rocky Mountains are babies. They are newer than the Appalachian Mountains. Next, the South. There are 3 geographic features that I have highlighted in this region. The coastal plain, the Florida Peninsula, and the Everglades. The coastal plain is the green portion highlighted on the map. It stretches just south of D.C. all the way to Texas. The Florida Peninsula is one of the largest significant peninsulas in the United States. And the Everglades, which is a marshy land in the southernmost part of Florida, and is a national park of 2,300 square miles. Here we have the coastal plains, the Florida Peninsula, and the Everglades. Now let's break down each region and talk about specifically which states make up this region of the United States and some specific features of each. In the Northeast, water is the most valuable resource. In the Northeast, because of the rocky core, you will notice if you study history that many of the region's industrial areas started up as mills alongside rivers, using the water to power the mills. This area is not super suitable for farming, therefore there's lots of industry. It is highly populated. It is the first portion of our country that was settled back when the Europeans came. to the New World. In this, because there are so many large metropolitan areas, we have many megalopolises, which are closely linked metropolitan areas so that they merge into one. Probably you've heard of Minneapolis-St. Paul, which would be a good example, and Dallas-Fort Worth would be another good example. If Kansas City had St. Louis close to it enough that it kind of overlapped, that would be a great example of a megalopolis. The largest urban area in this region is New York, New York. States in the region are, and you can simply abbreviate, ME is Maine, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, New York, Rhode Island, and New Jersey. The South. The South is marked by lots of rain and warm, wet climate. Bayous and marshy inlets mark this area and make it unique. The South, unlike the North, has lots of fertile soil, which is good for farming. The Sun Belt, which is a band of states stretching from the Carolinas to California, have many things in common, of which would be warm weather, so tourism is big, fishing, and then, like we mentioned before, the farming. Lots of diverse populations in this region, including Cuban, French, Hispanic, and African American. States in the region are Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Texas. The Midwest, our home of the Great Plains, Great Lakes, and grasslands. We have seasonal change, meaning we have marked seasons: hot summers, cold winters, fall, and spring. This is the agricultural heartland of the U.S., with a growing season of 200 days in Kansas. It's the nation's breadbasket, meaning most of the nation's cereal crops are produced in this region: wheat, corn, and oats. States in the region are North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Kansas, and Missouri. The West. This is the home of the Rocky Mountains and Grand Canyon. The West is marked by extremes: scarcity of rain and abundance of rain. So very, very little and way, way, way too much. Lots of mining minerals in this region: gold, silver, and copper, to name a few. The Alaska Pipeline is one thing you might want to think about when writing down natural resources. Fishing and forestry are also big. This is also home to Los Angeles, which is our second largest city in the nation. States in the region are Washington, Oregon, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, California, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Alaska, and Hawaii. This concludes Lesson 7, the United States.